Okay, as we start our notes for weathering, first thing I want you to clue in on is Earth's surface. Earth's surface is basically anything on the outside of the planet. This can be hills, valleys, mountains, water, like the ocean. On Earth's surface, everything is constantly changing. Second point, another word for changing is dynamic. This will be a word that you see in this unit, dynamic. Okay, so like a basketball game. A basketball game is always moving, the ball is going back and forth. It is a dynamic game. It is not static. Okay, static basically means nothing is moving. So everything on Earth is dynamic, it is always changing. Okay, next bit of thing to talk about is Earth's surface is continually being sculpted. There's 5 major forces that are going to be doing this. Water, this can come in the form of rain, precipitation coming down from the sky. It could also be oceans, rivers, streams, lakes. Water's always moving, it always takes stuff with it. Wind, we all know we live in the windy city, Chicago. Wind, basically if it has other factors like sand brushed up into it, will help shape landscapes. Ice in the form of glaciers or just ice that gets on the ground. This is a big time factor that helps shape our planet. Finally, plate tectonics. This is just what we talked about a couple units ago. Basically, this is going to be volcanoes or earthquakes. These do a lot of changing on our planet. And finally, biological. This can be small plant life, but more specifically humans. Please make sure that you have 5 forces and list these 5 in your notes. And make sure that you're explaining why these are changing. Okay, kind of going back. Weather process is part of the rock cycle. Okay, so we have the different types of rock. Sedimentary rock, this is going to be example limestone. Dead plant life or animal life settles down, gets compacted, and that's where you get sedimentary rock. Igneous rock, this is going to be volcanoes, basically where you get magma that comes up from underground, solidifies on the surface, creating new rock. That's an igneous rock. Metamorphic rock is just what we started talking about last unit. Basically, you have to start off with some rock. Through pressure and heat, it changes into different types of rock. Okay, so you have these 3. Then you also have magma. Okay, so depending on if I have heating, high temperatures and pressure, that can form metamorphic rock. If I have igneous rock and it weathers, it can go into sedimentary, and then vice versa. Basically, study this. I would suggest having this in your notes for the upcoming test. Again, make sure that you understand sedimentary, igneous, metamorphic, and magma, and how weathering can affect all these. Okay, weathering is an external process. Basically, this is going to mean that it happens on the surface. It occurs on Earth's surface. The many different factors can include wind, water, ice, and they all get their energy from the sun. Okay, internal process or processes, so think of inside the body. These processes that are something that changes the Earth's surface. They get their energy from inside, so basically the magma inside the mantle. Examples would include plate tectonics. These change shape, size, and location of the landmass. Volcanic activity, mountain building, earthquakes. Okay, key definitions that you're going to want to have. Weathering. This is the breakup of rocks, Earth's surface. This include big plates like the Pacific Plate or North American Plate, or it can basically include just small pebbles. Erosion. This is the physical removal or transport of rock material by water, wind, or ice. And finally, mass wasting. The movement of large amounts of rock or soil downslope due to gravity. Landslide. Okay, weathering. This is basically what this first part of the unit is going to be. Definition: a physical breakup and chemical decomposing or breakup of rock due to exposure and processes at or near Earth's surface. Okay, so basically weathering, if some kind of rock is falling apart or going into a smaller piece, it is weathering. It is a slow and subtle process. All materials are susceptible to weathering. So basically anything that's on the surface can and will eventually weather and break down. There are 2 types of weathering. These include mechanical, so basically this is physically breaking it up. One example would be you can start off with a saltine cracker. If I crumple it up to put it in some soup, it's still going to be a saltine cracker. Chemical weathering. Basically, this is where you're actually changing the chemical composition of the rock through heat or other chemical means. Okay, mechanical weathering. This is basically the breaking or splitting up of the rock into smaller and smaller pieces. The rock's minerals composition remains unchanged. Different examples of mechanical weathering include frost wedging, abrasion, so if you want to think of a Brillo pad or something you use to clean the dishes with, exfoliation, and biological activity. Okay, frost wedging. This is the repeated freezing and thawing of a rock with a crevice possibly, and the water is coming and going. The water expands about 9% and when it's frozen. Water is only about one of 3 or 4 different known things on Earth that will expand when they actually get cold. Typically, everything else that we know will shrink. Expanding exerts tremendous outward force, so basically you're pushing outward when it's frozen. The water works in a way that it cracks and pores in rocks, breaking them into pieces when it freezes. So basically, if you want to think pothole out on your street, the pothole was originally a small crevice, water got in, it expanded, now you've got a big hole. Again, abrasion, the scraping and wearing down of rocks. This is basically due to water, wind, and glaciers. In this case, abrasion by water, rocks tumble, go back and forth as they go down to the lower part of the river. They collide and are carried downstream. They hit other rocks, they start to fall apart. Big examples would be big boulders here will break anything that's coming down this way. And then it'll eventually become really small sediment. Okay, exfoliation, the uploading. Basically, this is the sedimentary rock as it erodes away. Igneous rock, granite, is uplifted and exposed. With less pressure weight on the granite breaks loose in layers like an onion. Okay, abrasion due to glaciers. Ice and rock fragments slide over bedrock, scraping, scratching, and polishing the rocks as it moves. So one way to think about this, if you look down at this lower picture, is the rocks came down and they wore away at this big plate or underlying rock. And basically you start getting these lines. So think of it as you had a pan, maybe like a Teflon coated pan, and you started scrubbing it with a Brillo pad, cleaning pad. It's going to start getting streaks and stuff. That's exactly what happened down here. Okay, factors that will affect the rate of weathering. Not all rocks weather at the same rate. The minerals that are composed of rocks, basically if it's hard versus soft minerals, will determine whether it's how fast it weathers. Second point, how much the surface area is exposed. Smaller pieces will weather a whole lot faster. Third, the climate that the rock is in, temperature and precipitation. So the hotter or cooler that it's in and the amount of rain will affect how fast the rock breaks down. In general, the bigger the upswing, higher temperature, lower temperature, and amount of rain will also really affect this. And fourth, and most, is time. More time, the better chance that something will crack or break open.